Hey, what's going on, everybody? It's me again, Golden Blue Dude. If you haven't already, go ahead and hit that like and subscribe button. I do college football videos every single day. And welcome to the craziest college football season since 2007. We've only just completed week 4, and it's the craziest season I've seen since 2007. If it keeps going like this, it could top 2007. So in this video, I wanted to talk about the crazy conference races that are going on right now. First up, the ACC. Is Clemson out of contention for the ACC title? Maybe not completely, but they looked horrific last night. It's not looking good for Clemson. Right now in the ACC, really it comes down to the Atlantic, like it does every year. Because in the Coastal, it's total crap. Maybe Virginia Tech wins, I don't know. Maybe Pitt gets it together, Miami, North Carolina, who knows. But in the Atlantic, it's very interesting. Of course you have Clemson, but I'm going to put them on the back burner right now. And the two teams that are undefeated in the Atlantic right now are Wake Forest and Boston College. So Wake Forest is 4-0. Their best win was the road trip to Virginia. Toughest games left. At Army, at North Carolina, NC State, at Clemson, at Boston College. So they do have a lot of tough games left. Boston College is also 4-0. Their best win is Missouri. Toughest games left. At Clemson, NC State, Virginia Tech, Wake Forest. I think Boston College's path is a little bit more doable than Wake Forest because 3 out of their 4 remaining toughest games are at home. Boston College, the 2021 ACC champs. Has a nice ring to it, don't it? Next up, the Big 12, also up for grabs. Why? Because Oklahoma looks bad. Yes, they got the win against West Virginia. Man, their offense looks bad. And that's their biggest win so far, the home game against West Virginia. Here's their toughest games left. At Kansas State, who's had their number. Texas, at Baylor, Iowa State, at Oklahoma State. If Oklahoma keeps playing the way they've been playing, there's at least 2 losses in the remaining schedule. Baylor's also undefeated. They have 1 good win against Iowa State. Toughest games left. At Oklahoma State, West Virginia, BYU, Texas, Oklahoma. So the good news for Baylor fans is 4 out of your 5 toughest games are at home. It's doable. Oklahoma State, they're also undefeated. 2 good wins at Boise State and then Kansas State. Toughest games left, Baylor, at Texas, at Iowa State, at West Virginia, Oklahoma. Not as easy of a schedule. 3 of their 5 toughest remaining games are on the road. And maybe Texas. I know they picked up a loss against Arkansas, but that was out of conference and Arkansas looks good. They have a decent win against Louisiana. Toughest games remaining, Oklahoma State, at Baylor, at Iowa State, at West Virginia, Kansas State. So 3 tricky road games and 3 tough home games. Texas definitely does not have an easy path to the Big 12 championship game. So yeah, the Big 12 is still up in the air. Now the Big 10 East. This is a crazy division, probably the craziest division in all of college football right now. Of course, you still have Ohio State. They have 1 loss, but it's against Oregon out of conference. That defense looks terrible. They have no good wins right now. Toughest games, Maryland, Penn State, Michigan State, at Michigan. That's doable. 3 of your 4 remaining toughest games are at home, but Oregon has proven Ohio State can be beaten at home. After that, we have Maryland. Yes, Maryland's undefeated. They have a good win against West Virginia. Toughest games remaining, Iowa, at Ohio State, Penn State, at Michigan State, Michigan. That's a tough remaining schedule. We'll see just how legit Maryland is. Michigan State, they're also undefeated. They have 1 good win against Miami on the road. Toughest games remaining, Michigan, Maryland, at Ohio State, Penn State. So 3 of their 4 remaining toughest games at home. And then there's Michigan. They're undefeated. They don't have any good wins right now. Toughest remaining games, at Wisconsin, at Michigan State, at Penn State, at Maryland, Ohio State. 4 of your 5 remaining toughest games on the road. And then finally Penn State, the front runner. 2 good wins at Wisconsin and then Auburn. Toughest remaining games, at Iowa, at Ohio State, at Maryland, Michigan, at Michigan State. 4 of their toughest remaining games are on the road. Man, whoever's scheduled for Penn State this year, y'all really screwed them. They have one of the toughest schedules in the nation this year. So yes, the Big 10 East still up for grabs. I guess Penn State's the front runner, but that schedule is brutal. Then we have the Big 10 West. Really only 1 team, and that's Iowa. They have a big win at Iowa State. Toughest remaining games, at Maryland, Penn State, at Wisconsin. Your toughest game, Penn State, at home. So Iowa could get to the Big Ten Championship undefeated. Now on over to the Pac-12. It is a 1-team race, and that's Oregon. They have 2 good wins, Fresno State and at Ohio State. Toughest remaining games, at Stanford, at UCLA, and at Utah. So the bad news for Oregon fans, your toughest games remaining are on the road, but those 3 teams aren't exactly lighting the world on fire. It's doable. Now time for the SEC. First up, the SEC East. Of course, we have Georgia. Head and shoulders the front runner. They have one good win, and it's against Clemson. Toughest remaining games: Arkansas, at Auburn, Kentucky, and Florida. 3 of their 4 remaining toughest games at home. Georgia could absolutely get to the SEC championship undefeated. Then we have Florida. They do have 1 loss, but it was against Alabama and only a 2-point loss, so that's not going to hurt them very much. Toughest remaining games: at Kentucky, Georgia. That's it. So Florida is definitely still in the conversation. And finally, Kentucky, undefeated. They have a decent win against Missouri. Toughest remaining games: Florida and at Georgia. So Kentucky is 1 miracle win on the road against Georgia away from getting to the SEC championship. That's crazy. On to the SEC West. This one's crazy as well. I guess technically Texas A&M is still in it, but they have got to find an offense. They don't have any good wins. Their 1 loss was against Arkansas, 20-10. That's not a terrible loss. Toughest remaining games: Alabama, Auburn, at Ole Miss. So 2 of their 3 remaining toughest games at home. That's why I still have Texas A&M still technically in this. They need some offense to pull this off. Besides them, of course, Alabama. They have good wins against Miami and at Florida. Toughest remaining games: Ole Miss, at Texas A&M, Arkansas, at Auburn. So Alabama will be tested. And then there's Arkansas. They're undefeated. They have good wins against Texas and Texas A&M. So Arkansas owns the state of Texas right now. Toughest remaining games: at Georgia, at Ole Miss, Auburn, and at Alabama. Yikes. Before the season, I had Arkansas having the toughest schedule in the nation. It still holds true. And then finally, Ole Miss. They're 3-0. They don't have any good wins yet either. Toughest remaining games: at Alabama, Arkansas, at Auburn, Texas A&M. That's actually doable, but that road trip to Alabama, that's going to be a toughie. That's going to tell us a lot about Ole Miss and the SEC West. And outside of the Power 5, teams that might have a chance to get to the playoffs: Notre Dame, they're undefeated. They have a good win against Wisconsin. Toughest remaining games: Cincinnati, at Virginia Tech, and then maybe USC and North Carolina. All of a sudden, Notre Dame has a really good path to the playoffs, and they looked pretty good against Wisconsin. Can't count out the Irish to make the playoffs. What about Cincinnati? They have 1 decent win on the road against Indiana. Toughest remaining games: at Notre Dame. That's your season right there, Cincinnati, at Notre Dame. Because after that, you get UCF and SMU at home. That's not going to get you in the playoffs. You have to beat Notre Dame on the road if you want any shot of getting into the playoffs. That's a must-win for Cincinnati. And finally, BYU. I fully admit, BYU surprised me. I thought they would take a major step back. Nope, not yet. Good wins against Utah and Arizona State at home. Toughest remaining games: at Baylor and at USC. So there's still a lot of season to be played. Clemson is not making the playoffs. The ACC is probably not making the playoffs as a conference. Ohio State's defense is trash. Oklahoma doesn't have an offense. And the Pac-12 might make the playoffs this year. Welcome to the 2021 college football season. That's all I got for you for this show. Like and subscribe if you haven't already, and I'll see you on my next show.